Nintendo has just released their information about the money they made in 9 months regarding the fiscal year ending March 2019. Websites and YouTubers are already reporting on it as if this information directly affects our own success and happiness. This just bothers me on so many levels, because I know what it's like to care so much about a company even though we have nothing to gain financially. Why do we care? Nintendo fans seem like the only fans that care about sales numbers. When is the last time you ever saw a Sony fan bragging about how many PlayStation 4s Sony has sold? Have you ever heard a Sony fan bragging about how many copies of Spider-Man or God of War Sony sold? Not I. Why is this? Is this because Nintendo is still the underdog? Most people love rooting for the underdog, whether it's in video games, sports, or any other category. Nintendo Switch sells very well, and it gets a lot of love, but not necessarily a lot of respect. It is the weakest console of the three. We know that it doesn't get most third-party games, and we know that next year we will probably be getting next-generation PlayStations and Xboxes. Games on the Switch might look even worse by comparison by then, and thus sales of the Switch might take a nosedive. Perhaps this is because we know that success is fleeting, or rather that any current success is only relevant to that time period, and is no assurance that that success will continue in the future. We as Nintendo fans are subconsciously or consciously enjoying the success because 1. We know how hard it was during the Wii U, and 2. We don't know whether this success will continue in the future. The Nintendo Wii sold 101 million units worldwide, but its direct successor, the Wii U, only sold 13 million. Nintendo fans know that success, like Amiibo, are in short supply, and so we will take whatever we can get, whenever we can get it. Sony fans are not immune to adversity either. The PlayStation 2 sold 155 million units, but the PS3 only sold 80 million, which is not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not nearly as good as the PS2's numbers. So why don't Sony fans brag to Microsoft and Nintendo fans about their favorite company's success like Nintendo fans do? First of all, I don't think Sony fans necessarily exist. I think PlayStation fans exist. But I don't think there are many people who love and identify with Sony as a company. Rather, they respect the products that they put out more than the company itself. I think with Nintendo, they put their hearts on their sleeves and make games and consoles that are true to their inner vision of what video gaming should be, rather than just simply giving consumers what they want, or what consumers will buy. Second of all, it is generally frowned upon for the top dog to look down upon and bully the underdog. It's tacky, cringeworthy, and people think it will jinx their future success. Sony fans know that they are on top. Microsoft fans know that Sony is on top. Nintendo fans know that Sony is on top. There is no need for Sony fans to gloat about it. Okay, so Nintendo sold a lot of Switches and games. We all like big numbers when they reference a positive thing, but why do we care? We don't work for Nintendo. We don't make money from these sales. We are not shareholders. We are just fans. I understand the psychology behind fandom. As a big fan of the New Jersey Nets, now the Brooklyn Nets, and the National Basketball Association, I used to live and die off their wins and losses. Eventually, after many years, I realized that this was dumb. I shouldn't let something that I have no control of dictate my happiness. We think our desires of how others succeed can influence their fortunes. So we root our hearts out, screaming at the TV as we watch sports games. We yell at the refs, making fun of the opposing team, and we cheer after every basket made by our own team. We yell at the monitors during Nintendo Directs, asking for localizations that will never happen, sequels that will never come out, and remasters that will never be released in this dimension. I have come to the conclusion that this is both insane and self-abuse. Imagine you're playing a video game on a couch, and your 5-year-old niece comes over and wants to play, but you don't want her to play. It's like giving her a controller that has no power and make her believe that she is playing that game while you are the one that is actually playing the game. The difference is that you are doing this to yourself. Maybe we think that it's the companies themselves that foster this delusion of influence, but I must wonder, they never ask for rabid insane fandom. Companies like Nintendo or basketball teams like the Nets never suggested that their success would transfer happiness onto their fans. Or did they? I do think that oneness on Earth is something that is happening overall on a spiritual level, but sometimes you have to disconnect and look at things realistically. Does Nintendo's success really impact me? Sure, if Donkey Kong Country's Tropical Freeze, a game that I don't necessarily want to play, sells well, it might mean that Metro Studios stays alive and gets to work on Metroid Prime 4, a game that I probably do want to play, but it could also mean that Nintendo forces Retro to only make Donkey Kong games for the rest of time. At the same time, we have to be happy with what we have in the present moment. We can't always be wanting something more. When I look on the Nintendo subreddit, Nintendo fans are always pining for a new entry in a long dormant franchise like F-Zero or Super Mario RPG. But you can't let that desire for the future affect your happiness today. Be happy with what you have. Be happy with the games that Nintendo has already put out into the world. Play those games again, instead of wishing that they would make a sequel or put out an HD remaster of them. Some of my favorite games in Nintendo history have been things I never wanted, but loved once I tried them. As you may be able to tell from my channel, Splatoon is one of those games. Who knew that I would stop playing games like Battlefield 4 or Titanfall, games in which I have over 800 hours played each, to solely play Splatoon to get my competitive shooter fix. But that is exactly what happened. Super Mario 64 was a game I could have never envisioned in my youth, so when I played this 3D Mario for the first time, my mind was blown. Desire is not necessarily the enemy here, but how you deal with desire has dire ramifications. If you want something really badly, don't focus on the lack of its existence. Instead, focus on the hope of its eventual release. Have no expectations, and you won't be disappointed.